Alrighty everyone, welcome back. We're now getting very close to the release date of Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny. Not that I'm excited about this movie, but it is going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens with the box office results come post June 30th. That's really going to give you a rough idea of how close it is to the projections that have been very much apparent for multiple weeks now that Disney and Lucasfilm have been so unhappy about, mind you, to the point that they have to actually have Applebee's promoting their film to give you a free ticket. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. And let's get into exactly what's going on with the Indy 5 sequel. Now, we know that James Mangold has been very open about this, that he wants no involvement, and there's actually a deep reason why behind that. We're going to cover all of that piece by piece. But the Indy 5 sequel in and of itself is something that Kathleen Kennedy, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and some of the Disney executives are currently discussing right now, regardless of what happens to the Dial of Destiny. So this is just another example that Kathleen Kennedy always doubles down, regardless of the outcome of a previous project, and this is basically going to show you that they don't care about projections, or that they don't really care about, I should say, statistics when it comes to their franchises, but they just want to keep pushing whatever they want to push. So let's get into the actual details here about what's really going on with the sequel. Now, on top of all of this, with those like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni endlessly trying to course-correct Star Wars with the Ahsoka series, however, it's noted that Kathleen Kennedy and those at Disney are trying to salvage Indy 5 as much as they can. Now further, it's noted that behind the scenes, both Kathy and many executives at Disney that are loyal to her are already heavily discussing an Indy 5 sequel. The plan is to focus on the further adventures of Helena Shaw to carry on Indiana's legacy. James Mangold was initially in the talks to take on the sequel as the main writer and director, but he is stepping down and wants nothing to do with that after suspicions grow of Indy 5 flopping at the box office after they invested $300 million into this thing. Now, the current pitch of the Indy 5 sequel behind closed doors is to have Helena and Teddy go on various adventures that Indiana Jones could not take up due to his old age. The idea is to take the ideas from an original pitch they initially had that was going to use de-aging and deepfake tech of Harrison Ford, or a recast at that, to showcase adventures set between Raiders and The Last Crusade. However, those adventures are now being handed over to Helena and Teddy and will be fine-tuned to take place after the events of the Dial of Destiny. Both Kathy Kennedy and Spielberg are said to be in agreement with each other about the plan to have Helena and Teddy take up their adventure that Indiana Jones had mapped out himself that he couldn't complete during his younger years. Now let me pause here for a second. Now, this is just utterly ridiculous. Let me just add this. We know that Indy 5 is something that nobody really asked for. Nobody really wanted to see a 80-year-old Harrison Ford jumping from car to car, climbing up, rocks and buildings and stuff like that. At that age, it just looks ridiculous. And that is one of the big critiques, by the way, by the Hollywood critics. Not so much the agenda, but surprisingly, how he appears very much geriatric in this movie, and not just old, but geriatric, literally. And that kind of takes you away from the experience and the realism of this thing. Now, from what we've heard, the only good that comes out of this movie, acting-wise, is Mads Mikkelsen, because who doesn't love Mads Mikkelsen? He always plays a sadistic, evil role in his movies for the most part. He did an excellent job, by the way, in Casino Royale. Go ahead and check out that Bond movie, one of my all-time favorites. But what's interesting about this is that you have Kathleen Kennedy literally stripping down what Indiana Jones stands for. So this Indy 5 sequel, in a sense, is basically how the Rey movie is being treated, where you had The Rise of Skywalker as the quote-unquote final film of the saga, even though, by the way, they are pre-planning a 10, 11, and 12 for the distant future, which is crazy, but they are in the talks of doing that. But it's similar in a sense to how the Rey movie is just Rey's film, and how now the sequel is going to be, for Indy 5, for Helena's story. It's basically going to be a Helena movie, much like the Rey movie of the post-episode 9 thing that's going around right now. So, further on top of this, alright, now, there are zero plans of a de-aged Indiana Jones in the form of a cameo or flashbacks or anything of the sort in this actual project, and Kathy's plan is to completely divert away from Indiana Jones. The title of the Indy 5 sequel, however, is something Kathy and Spielberg are having trouble with already, as they are discussing this, and Spielberg has been instructed to shoot down any confirmation of working on a sequel. The same goes for Kennedy, as Disney executives and their Kennedy loyalists want a sequel to happen within the next 3 years. Now, look, I can see why they would want this to happen within the next 3 years, because they probably want the backlash of Indy 5 to blow over, to become forgotten, to become a thing of the past, and that is a tactic that they tried to do with the Rian Johnson trilogy, but failed. And look, let's face it, when you're embracing something like an Indy 5 sequel before Indy 5 has even released, it's not gonna happen, and I've said this endlessly, I don't believe it's gonna end up happening. It could very well be in development for many years to come, for sure, but in the end, I don't see an Indy 5 sequel happening. I really just don't know how it's even physically possible. If the box office numbers are going to be this bad for the Dial of Destiny, how are they really going to make another movie? Well, that's where the resolution comes into play, where Kathleen Kennedy figured, let's make it into a series for Disney Plus. This way we can rely on subscription services, not necessarily a ticket. And so they're looking into that too, and they're kind of leaning toward making it into a show. Give or take like an 8-episode type of thing. The adventures of Helena and Teddy taking up Indiana's failed adventures that he never got to complete. Once again, goes to show you that they don't care about the core audience, it's all about taking over with new characters. And James Mangold likes to lie to his audience as much as possible with Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, saying in the beginning of how this movie was never about focusing on Helena, and that Helena never leads the way in the film. That's not going to happen. It actually does indeed happen. All the Hollywood critics are talking about this, of how every decision that is made in this movie is Helena's decision, and that basically Indy is along for the ride. That's really the core treatment of The Dial of Destiny right now. So just be aware that that's what all the Hollywood critics are saying, and these are the type of people that you would expect to be more lenient with this movie, to be more, I guess you could say, soft with the reviews, but they're not being so soft this time around, so far at least. So anyways, it's going to be interesting to see what the audience score, at least on Rotten Tomatoes, is going to look like on Friday, leading into the weekend. That's going to bring us into July 4th, and I think that's going to be interesting too. So overall, I would really love to hear your take on this below, guys, in the comments. You know, what do you think about this Indy 5 sequel that's in the talks? And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.